Hey y'all! I'm here with my second Science Simplified video, and this is a really cool paper. I'm super excited to talk to you guys about this. So I learned about diet breaks initially from Eric Helms. Awesome guy, definitely follow him. Check everything out that he's written or spoken about, he's amazing. So he was talking to me last year about this diet break phenomenon, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I never even heard about this before. So there's more people than Eric doing diet breaks in the fitness community, but he was the first person who exposed me to this, and I heard about this paper, I believe from him, or I got it from a citation from something that he had written. And so this is really one of the papers that kind of scientifically shows why a diet break would be a good idea. So again, if I'm gonna probably say this every time, most research is done in just the average population, just average dieting people, not physique competitors. If it is a physique competitor, then I will most likely tell you about that. But these are just normal people. You know, this isn't applied directly, of course, but this is just a cool hypothesis that has been tested through evidence-based training. Should be looked at like, okay, there is some evidence behind this. You know, this could possibly be a good idea. It's not harmful, so let's try it. And that's kind of how I believe Eric and other people have looked at it. And then they've tried it with a ton of clients and they've had great success. So now, you know, it's kind of bridging science and application, because there's never really going to be a whole review on these types of studies, maybe for the next, I would say thousands of years. There's not going to be this type of interest or this mass amount of research for a very long time. So what we have to do is we kind of have to take an evidence-based approach and then use it practically in the real world. So this is the study, or one of the studies that you know, shows the diet break phenomenon. And in practical terms, which they don't talk about here, but a diet break would be best utilized for someone on a diet. Surprise! That was really hard to deduce. While you're dieting, whether this is for a competition or just a regular diet. And essentially what you would do is go to maintenance calories for a week at least. Now, maintenance calories is a moving target, so there's no real way to calculate it, but typically what people will do is they will do whatever they were doing for a refeed, and then that will be kind of their assumed maintenance. So these are typically, I would say, probably 1 to 3 weeks, maybe 4 if it's not a competition diet and it's just a very long extended diet and you're trying to maximize things. But essentially why Eric recommends them and everyone recommends them is for the metabolic and hormonal adaptations of dieting. They are inevitable. Everyone has them. Your metabolism slows down, you lose weight, you know, thermic effect of food goes out, you have less NEAT. I mean, there's just so many things that go down with dieting, just in general. And of course, hormonal adaptations, and your hormones just take a hit on this. And again, inevitable, you guys, when you're getting to a lean body fat percentage, or you're just dieting in general, getting past whatever you were before and getting leaner, even if it isn't stage lean, is still a big change to your body. So there are going to be adaptations, but essentially what a diet break can do is kind of halt these, hopefully, and almost just prime you to lose weight better afterwards. And that is, you know, hypothetical. A lot of people actually, if you're somebody who maybe holds on to water, and you know, like when you get stressed out, and if you ever notice, if you drop food really hard, you actually hold on to weight more, and sometimes you have a refeed day and you lose weight, these would be awesome for you. I've used them when people just have very what I would consider stubborn metabolisms, maybe from histories of dieting, histories of just chronic over exercising. So these are really helpful. And then of course I cannot forget about the you know, the mental and psychological component of this. Having as far as a competitor, or even if you are just doing this for the long haul on a regular diet, dieting is hard mentally. So this is an amazing week, and this is not a YOLO week. This is not a eat your face off food competition week. This is a very controlled thing. So again, practical sense, typically you'll do 7 days at minimum on the refeed numbers. Sometimes you'll cut cardio in half. That's what Eric recommends. I usually do that for people. Again, it kind of depends on where we're at and their journey, and there's a lot of different factors, but at least go back to around refeed or maintenance calories for a week. Ideally cut cardio down by some, and then just kind of reassess the next week. A lot of people will usually maintain Some people lose, some people gain a little bit of weight. And even if you gain a little bit, it's okay. You literally ate more food for a week. Like, it's okay. People typically come back down, but it may be easier to kind of come back down after these sticking points. So that is the reasoning behind the diet breaks, and this is the paper. So let's get into it. I wanted to read the beginning of this introduction. I thought it was just so powerful. Despite efforts to address the problem of maintenance, maximal weight loss is typically achieved at around 6 months, followed by weight regain. The consistency with which maximal weight loss occurs at 6 months is striking, occurring at almost all participants in behavioral weight loss programs across a variety of different methods, even very low calories and medications. These observations, oh my God, you get the idea, suggest that the difficulty of long-term maintenance may be due to problems in psychological and behavioral adjustment in the process of weight loss rather than underlying physiological mechanisms. So super interesting. That's kind of how they preface this whole thing. The introduction is typically, why we did this research. And this is true. I mean, we see this all the time. Unless you change your behavior, it's not going to change anything. So the title of this paper is Prescribed Breaks as a Mean to Disrupt Weight Control Efforts. So it was by Wing and Jeffrey, and it was in the obesity research 2003, but this was an awesome paper, so I don't care when it was written. It could have been written in 1900s. This would still be cited by me. So what a lot of people find, they found whether in research and in real life, that if something disrupts the weight loss efforts, then people usually just kind of falling off the wagon per se, then they just kind of kick it all in and they're like, oh, whatever. So if they lose this momentum or it's kind of broken, a lot of times people will just not recover from it and they won't actually continue to lose weight. So in the lab, they wanted to disrupt this. Obviously this was fake, but they created this. They lost their momentum. They disrupted this pattern, like what would happen. So super, super interesting design. And I think it's really cool and super applicable to everyone listening. Total of 142 subjects. That's awesome, y'all. Like, that is a lot of people. So that is really, really good. 25 to 30, both males and females. 25 to 60, sorry, not 30. That would be a really small age range. 25 to 60, and then males and females, mostly females because it was a dieting study. So there was a control group, a long break group, and a short break group. So there was 14 sessions for the control group on 14 consecutive weeks of just behavioral therapy, which is very normal for just like weight loss programs. Then there was a long break group, which took a 6-week break after the 7th lesson. So it was 7 lessons, 6-week break, 7 more lessons. Then there was a short break group, which took 2-week breaks after the 3rd, 6th, and 9th lessons. So essentially they both had 6 weeks off of the program, but they, it was split up differently. And they were assessed at the end of the post-treatment and then 6 months later. So really, really good. That's so awesome to do follow-up. Like, it's really hard to get people to come back, but it is so cool, especially when you're looking at kind of weight loss and weight regain research. It's almost imperative, which is why I included it in my research. So during the meetings, it was just a typical kind of weight loss behavioral meeting, looking at behaviors, diet tips, exercise tips. They were based on their baseline weight. They were either assigned to about 1,000 to 1,500 calories, a pretty steep, reduction, but for most people who are probably overweight, but this was, a diet, and this, again, you want it to be substantial. And then they were given this list of foods of 13 high-fat foods, cheese, burgers, pastries, stuff like that, that they could not break. That was excluded, so that was set out at the beginning. And then they gradually increased activity to 150 minutes per week, so a good amount. And then they were told to record their diet and exercise and their weight when they were on the programs daily. So when they were on these long breaks or the short breaks, they were told that it was an opportunity to relapse and that they had to learn how to recover from it. So they were kind of explained, they were explained why they were doing this. And then there were no meetings during this time. And, after the break ended, they kind of just picked up where they left off. So really cool design. Again, I wanted to kind of go into that a little bit deeper just so you guys could see this is not how we've interpreted diet breaks in the physique the physique community, but I think it's still cool to understand and appreciate the design that went into this, because a good design is honestly like the most important thing for research. The primary dependent measure was change in body weight from baseline, of course, which, was assessed at every treatment, and then at the end, and then the post-diet treatment. But they also had to write down how many times they consumed those 13 restricted foods on that list, the number of days they'd weighed themselves, and the number of days they'd recorded their diet and exercise, and also the number of minutes walking spent per week. So it was pretty in depth. They wanted them to really look at you know, make sure they had a good picture of how they were following things. And again, this is self-report, so people could lie, but for the most part, people like, if you're in this, like I would definitely trust them, especially how long the study was. So don't look at that as like, oh, they probably just wrote it down. Like most people don't do that, you guys. So let's get to the results. So I talked about all of the different things that they analyzed. So during the week before the break, in the 15 of the 16 things that they analyzed, there was no differences seen between the control groups or the long break or short break group. So, okay, pretty cool. Everyone's following what they should be doing. But in contrast, there were significant changes during the break, meaning that people were less careful with their self-monitoring, self-weighing, eating that targeted food list, and that they basically did take a break. That, however, only the long break group seemed to take a break from exercise. So that's important to see that the short break group continued to exercise even when they had those 2-week breaks and they were told they could do whatever they wanted. So that the majority of the analyses showed no differences between the break during the group, and they quickly resumed their adherence after the break, which is also super, super cool. The majority of the analyses showed that the week after the diet break, so they've been back on track for a week, showed that there's really not many differences from during, you know, before the break period. So people just resumed things right away, which was awesome, you know. So they took this break, which the researchers were trying to like disrupt what they were doing and then, you know, see all these bad changes, but really the only thing that they saw that was significant was after the 3rd short break, people were just kind of, you know, they just did less self-monitoring and they, you know, had more consumption of the restricted foods, things of that nature. But overall, again, you would expect, okay, they're dieting on this pretty harsh diet and they're giving all these breaks, and then they were trying to basically insinuate or trying to show like, okay, are they gonna fall off and how are they gonna come back? So really, really cool stuff, I think at least, showing that people could have a break and then still come back and resume normal activities. Probably the coolest line out of this whole paper. Well, cool if you're a nerd, but like me. Although breaks appear to be associated with small weight regains or maintenance of weight loss, what we typically see in a diet break too, differences in weight changes between the break groups and the control group were not statistically significant. Importantly, overall weight loss from baseline to week 20 were comparable among all 3 groups. So basically, if you either just dieted, or you dieted and took a short break, or you dieted and took several short breaks, or you dieted and took 1 long break, you still ended up statistically having the same amount of weight loss over time. So again, when you look at stats, it's looking at the average of things for the most part. So there are going to be outliers in this situation, but again, we're looking at things as a whole. Then we can make, you know, evidence. We can use the evidence to then, you know, apply it to real life. And then for some clients, this is gonna work awesome. They're gonna be like off the charts, maybe like lose weight, more food. Some people may gain more weight. Some people may just kind of maintain in the middle, which is kind of what we're seeing here. Seeing that these prescribed diet breaks might not have a negative effect, you would ask why. And I think this is so key. And I think, again, as a practitioner, you know, as a coach, if anyone's watching and you're a coach or you're just helping somebody out, I think this is so important to keep in mind. So again, coming back to maybe not the physiology of it, but more the psychology, it seems plausible that, oh my God, I just like totally lost my train of thought. I was like, wait, I'm like trying to find it. I'm like trying to sound all official, and you guys know that I'm like so silly, so. Anyways, however, it seems plausible that the lapses produced in the present study were interpreted as responses to external demands in the situation, i.e. the program staff, or i.e. the coach or mentor, was instructing the participants to lapse, and consequently they did not precipitate negative reactions or self-blame. Super important. Thus, I wish I could like highlight like my words right now. Thus, the effects of such therapist prescribed breaks may be very different than when a participant takes a break due to personal difficulties or simply chooses not to attend a treatment meeting or falls off the wagon or something like that happens. So when I think that is so key, like they're showing no differences between whether you take short breaks, 1 long break, or no breaks at all with weight loss. So in my mind, why wouldn't you do that? You may maximize actually and make a diet better, particularly when we're talking about physique competitors and how harsh the diets are and how long the diets are. But then also, I think it's so important that it is kind of practitioner or coach or mentor, or in this case, you know, therapist, induced. So when I say to the client, hey, We're gonna eat at refeed macros this week. We're gonna cut your cardio in half, go kill it in the gym. That is so different than them coming to me and updating me and say, coach, I fell off this week. I ate everything in sight. I don't know what to do. That feels very different to an individual. So that's why I'm really trying to hammer home this point. I think it's so, so important. And the psychology of all this affects everything. Psychology is everything when you're dieting, you guys. And yes, of course, physiology is so important. I'm not ignoring physiology and hormones and metabolism, of course not, but you really have to take into consideration the psychology of your athlete or your client or your friend, whoever you're helping out, your mom, I mean, whatever it is, you have to take into consideration all these factors. So it's not just diet, 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 kill yourself, kill yourself, kill yourself. Maybe taking this break that is prescribed, again, the word prescribed is really important, is beneficial. And whether you're coaching, you can coach yourself too and tell yourself, hey, okay, between weeks 8 and 12 of my diet, I'm gonna take this break. And I did that last year for my prep and it worked out just fine. I had no remorse, no guilt, no beating myself up. I had a higher calorie week and then I got back and I killed it. And so again, I think when it's prescribed, whether it is just to yourself, you have to have these kind of realistic expectations and realistic talks with yourself. Most people can't do that, which is why it is important to have a coach or someone who's really close to you or a mentor, whatever you want to call it. So I will put the link below in the description as always, y'all, and you can look that up if you want. I was pretty detailed with this one. I talked about like not really going that long, but I thought this design was just too cool to not go over and really show you guys the differences of each group. So hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully you have a better understanding now of prescribed breaks just in the research sense, but also how we've transformed that to be relevant in the physique community. So thank you guys so much. Give this a like if you liked it. Obviously, I wish there was like a love button on YouTube, just kidding. But I do like hearts better than thumbs. It's like, and then definitely leave a comment below. I would love to hear you guys' feedback on this. I think this is such a cool topic. So thank you so much for watching and have a great day.